anyways. So again, I'm Mrs. Chilson. I'm one of the counselors in the counseling office. I am recording this presentation. And what will happen is raise your hand, you'll ask your question. I'm going to type your question into my PowerPoint. The whole thing is being recorded, and so if somebody wants to go back, they can just look through the questions and kind of know the order that things were answered on the website. If you're not muted while everybody else is speaking, if you can make sure you are muted, that's really helpful. And then everything will be posted on our Weebly tomorrow. I will upload the recording and the questions that were asked. Okay, so I see Miss Parks. Christine Parks, you're a guest, but go ahead and ask your question if you want to go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you. My son has gotten stuck on one of the processes in the application process where you're supposed to, I guess it's step 4, where you're supposed to attach the application to what he's sending in. And he's not familiar with how to do that. I didn't know if you could help us with that.
Yeah, so for either of the applications, whether it's Georgia State or Gwinnett Tech, or the Georgia Tech portal won't open until May 15th, but for any of those, when a student applies and they submit their application, all I need is a screenshot that they submitted it. I don't need the whole application or anything like that. I just need proof that the application was submitted. So that's what I'm looking for in the upload. Does that make sense?
That does, and that goes to you and not to the counselors, correct?
What happens is when a student uploads something into Navient, it goes in your account, and your counselor has access to it. I have access to, really any of the counselors have access to the student's information that gets submitted. But I promise you, your counselor is only going to be looking at your stuff because there's too many of them. So yeah, so for your counselor, it would be Miss Blunt. It gets uploaded there. Really, we're doing just a quick check through after March 31st to make sure that the contract gets submitted, the dual enrollment contract, that the funding application was submitted, that the Google form was completed, that the screenshot is there. You know, we're just kind of, you know, doing a quick check to make sure everything is there. Christine, did that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, he just needs to do a screenshot that basically and submit it up to you, or I guess through Naviance, correct?
Yeah, so the screenshot goes to Naviance, and it's just proof. That's how it's marked complete in Naviance, is by doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and make sure you take your hand away, and then I'll focus on somebody else. Okay, so the next person I see is Atharv.
Yes, hello. I have 2 questions, if that's possible. Yeah. So my first question is, so I had to redo my dual enrollment contract many times, and I kept on uploading it. So would my counselor see the newest one I uploaded?
Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about your dual enrollment contract. You needed to submit a new one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've submitted like over 5, but like each time I've changed something. So the final one I think is on there. So
okay, bear with me. Hold on. Okay, so for any dual enrollment contracts, and what ends up happening is in Naviance, there is like literally the counselor can see every time you downloaded the document, on which day and what time, when you uploaded a copy of your contract, what day and what time, and we are going to go with the most recent one that's been uploaded. So that's a pretty common thing, because I know I've been trying to go through some of mine. Some of them weren't done correctly. One of the main things about the contract, while I'm talking about the contract, is on page 2, the schedule that you are indicating that you're going to take for next school year, for the fall or for summer, fall, and spring. When you list those courses, for fall and spring, it needs to total 6 classes. So if you're taking 2 on the college side, which is on the right side of the chart, and then you need to have 4 high school classes that you're taking at Chattahoochee on the left side of the chart. So I know it totals 6. So that's where, and that is in no particular order. I just need to know what the plan is. So then for spring semester, if you change your mind and you're telling me I only want to do 1 college class in the spring, then I need 5 high school classes from Chattahoochee. And some students are like substituting it out with like a rec games or personal fitness, or I needed an extra class added in at that point. So I need to know what the total schedule looks like. If we're missing a class, I'm going to email and say, through Naviance, I can email and make a comment, and it will go to your Fulton County email. And I'm saying in the comment, when I'm looking at page 2 of your dual enrollment contract, it doesn't have enough classes listed to make a full schedule. Can you please update it and resubmit? So that's where that might come into play, is you'll get an email from your counselor saying something was incorrect with it, and to resubmit. I usually just need page 2 resubmitted, but if a student wants to reattach the whole thing, that's fine too. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Colin Purdom.
Oh wait, Ms. Chilson, I still have one more question, please.
Oh yeah, sure.
So for once we submit the application, it asks us to submit certain documents. So what exact documents do we need to submit, apart from the transcripts and the unofficial transcript and the official transcript?
Okay, so different colleges require different things. This is GSU specific, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Okay, so GSU does ask for some additional documents. I am not party to all the things that they want. I do know that some students are uploading an unofficial copy of their transcript just so that the college goes ahead and has a copy. We do submit your transcript for Georgia State. When you submit that dual enrollment interest form and you indicated to me that you wanted to apply to Georgia State, that very day that I get it on the interest form, I submit your transcript through Georgia Futures, and it gets sent to the college that same day or the next day. It's like a 24-hour rollover process for transcripts. So you don't need to do any other formal requests, but immunization records or birth certificates or any kind of documentation that they need, you'll have to ask admissions what specific things they're looking for.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Colin, you're up.
Okay, hi, I'm sitting here with Colin.
Oh, good, hi.
A couple of quick questions. The PSAT, is that possible to use for Gwinnett Tech in lieu of going in to take the AccuPlacer? We're just trying to avoid having to go in and take an AccuPlacer.
Yeah, so the awesome thing about Gwinnett Tech is that they will take a PSAT score. There are directions on our Weebly, so let me just show you that for a quick minute. So I don't know if you see on my screen our Weebly. Do y'all see Colin's mom? Do you see that?
I don't. I just see your PowerPoint presentation.
Oh, you're not seeing it anymore? It stopped sharing it. Okay. Let me see. Well,
it's okay. I can go in.
Okay, the best thing to do is to go to the Weebly, which is on at this site. It's chsmowr.weebly.com. And when you go there, there's a tab for Gwinnett Tech. And at the very bottom, it talks about how to request your PSAT scores to be sent, because it has to go to our registrar, Miss Leonardo, and in an email with specific information that you're requesting, so that she knows what specific scores to send. However, the big thing about Gwinnett Tech is you cannot request your PSAT scores to be sent until you've actually applied. You have to apply, had to have submitted your application to them, or else Miss Leonardo submits your scores to them, and then they can't pair them with anything because there's no application on file. And so then they end up emailing her back saying, sorry, we can't accept these scores. And so there's another delay. So That's how you would do it for Gwinnett Tech. Georgia State will not accept, they won't accept PSAT scores. So that's not an option for Georgia State. I know that, you know, a lot of people keep asking me about PSAT and Georgia State. That's not something that they will accept. So it's just an option for Gwinnett Tech.
Okay, and then
did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
And do you know what the minimum score is by chance?
No.
Okay.
It is on their website though.
Okay.
They do talk
and
through
you
it.
don't have to be accepted for Miss Leonardo to send it. You just have to have applied
You
already.
just had to
Okay.
yes, submitted your application to
So
them
when
so
you're-
that they have something to pair with.
Okay. When you're looking at Naviance, are you supposed to only see tasks that are not done? Because we completed a funding form, but when we look at Naviance, it's still showing it as a task. Is that just a general list?
Okay, so I went in and looked at your specific account, and the directions have to be followed in Naviance as they're written. So the form that you uploaded is the form that needed to go to Gwinnett Tech. The tuition assistance form, it needs to go directly to Gwinnett Tech. The only thing that you have to do is, I think you have to do our Google form. That's part 2 of the funding application. And then the part 1, and I'm going to pull up an account. Hold on. So I can explain it a little bit further. The thing with Naviance is, like, I can list out steps and I can do all that, but if you don't follow the directions exactly how Naviance wants it to be marked complete, it's still going to appear on your task list. So for example, the contract, until the contract gets uploaded as a document, it will not take it off your task list.
Is it possible that we uploaded the document that's called dual enrollment tuition fee books acknowledgement form by mistake? Because we uploaded a form, but maybe it wasn't the right one.
Yeah, and that was under the funding. That wasn't under the contract. So when you go to the contract page, there is a specific document, and I can see how many times the student has even downloaded the document. And then it will tell me when you upload the document as your own, it will tell me the date and time and everything, and the document will be there for me to view or for your counselor to view and look at.
Okay.
So for example, let me go there. Thank y'all for being patient. But like, for example, for step 2 for dual enrollment contract, it will say specifically it needs to be uploaded as one document in a PDF file. And there's a little pinkish arrow at the top right that says, to complete this task, you have to upload a document. The document that has to be uploaded is that contract. For the funding application, that's a 2-parter. You have to complete 2 steps for funding. You have to do the one-time application through Georgia Futures, and then you have to do the Google form for the college you intend to enroll in, telling us the specific classes that you want funded. And so those have to be done. To complete that task, you had to make a comment basically saying that, you know, to mark this task complete, please make a comment that you've completed both steps. And that's all you had to do for that, because the funding application is done through Georgia Futures. I have to log into Georgia Futures, or your counselor has to log into Georgia Futures to actually see that the application was done and that the parent part was completed. So that one has a couple of steps. And then the Google form, the links are in Naviance on how to get to them. But when I log into that form that I've created specific for funding for each semester, I will be able to see, like, your student's name, and they've requested Psychology 1101 and Math 1111, and that is what I'm funding for that semester. So that's kind of how we have to, there's just so many documents with dual enrollment to be able to, for us to approve funding and make sure you're doing the Fulton County stuff too. So there's just a lot of parts to it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, so did that answer your questions, Ms. Purdom?
I think so. We'll go back and take a second look at what document we uploaded and make sure we're following all the instructions. I thought we did put a comment, but we may have missed one thing in one giant file to upload together. So
Yeah, because
we'll go back and double check.
I'm seeing a tuition acknowledgement form, but that needs to go to Gwinnett Tech. That's not something I asked for.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, Adam, are you next?
Yes. So I was doing the funding form. It says I need to do my application first. Am I supposed to do them together or do the funding form first?
Okay. So this is probably an error on my part. So I will do things differently next year, but honestly, it doesn't really matter. You can do the funding form and you can go ahead and submit the step 3 stuff and then apply to the college. Either way is fine. You can apply to the college and then do the funding form. It really doesn't matter. Ultimately, if you don't apply to the college, you're not going to be funded for anything. So make sure that you definitely have done the application to the college, but it really doesn't matter about the order. It's more about that you get it all done. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I have another question.
Yeah, go for it.
So I was doing my application and it says for both list all courses you completed.
Adam, is this an application to Georgia State, Gwinnett Tech? Where is it?
Georgia State.
Okay, go ahead.
So it's asking me to list all the courses I completed this year and current and upcoming. So do I list my 11th grade grades as like classes?
Okay, so yeah, so another student was asking me this on email, and that's a great question. One of the things is that I think in the instructions, it specifically says for high school students what they are kind of looking for. But what I would say is that this application is used for dual enrollment, but it's also used for first-time freshmen. It's also used for transfer students. So it's like an all-in application. And so what is best practice is to put in what you're currently taking and what you think you might take next year. But I mean, what it comes down to is that we're going to be submitting your official transcript and they're going to see what you've taken. Does that make sense?
So do I put the stuff I took last semester as well?
No, just I think it only asks for current courses. You can list this whole year if you want to, but they're looking for what you're currently taking.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm going to duplicate this slide so I have another place to put questions. And I think we are on question number 8. Okay. Let me see here. Ms. Purdom, did you have another question? Your hand is still raised.
I'm sorry. No, I don't.
Okay. And then I can't say the last name. Is it Rao or Ro or Pragna?
Yeah.
Go ahead. What's your question?
So I submitted my JSU application like 2 weeks ago, and I went to the status page and it still says awaiting for the high school transcript. I was just confused. Is that normal?
Yeah, so what I have seen is that a lot of students are having their transcripts processed faster than they were last year, but Georgia State specifically says that you should give them 21 business days for them to process the document. So if you're concerned about it, you can always email admissions, which is admissions@gsu.edu. And you're welcome to email them and ask about your application status and say that it has been submitted. All of the transcripts, if you indicated on the interest form on that Google form, and I know we have a lot of Google forms, but if you indicated on the interest form that you were applying to Georgia State, I automatically send your transcript like that same day or the next day as soon as I'm back in the office. And that's when you get that initial email from me. You get the email that says, welcome, thank you for completing the interest form. So I try to send that out, and just know that when I do that, the transcript's already been sent. And I try to make it a fast process because I don't want you to have to request another document on top of something that I can just easily release to them. So that's kind of how we've been doing it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Did you have any other questions?
No, I'm good.
No? Okay, anybody else have questions? I'm gonna just hang out. And Pragna, if you hold on a second, I can tell you, I wanted to double check that yours really was sent, so give me a second. I have to go back. I have to pull a big report. What I would say is that a lot of students have already had theirs processed. I was looking at a kid's earlier today. They shared their screen with me. So, you know, that hasn't really been that much of an issue. Yeah, yours was sent and processed on February 17th.
Okay, should I just email them just in case?
You can. I would email that admissions@gsu.edu and just see if there's something else going on as to why they haven't received it. I mean, you're always welcome to do that. I don't like doing it like just a couple of days after it's been processed, but it's been almost a month, you know, like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that's fine. So I know we've had some people join us. If anybody has questions that they would like to ask, if you just want to raise your hand, and I'll be happy to answer anything that has come in. Ms. Keever, Susan?
Hi.
Hi.
I'm wondering about what the process is. My son is taking AP Lang this year, and the dual enrollment class we were going to take was English 1101, but I think if he passes the AP test, then he can get credit for that with GSU. Mm-hmm. Is that how that works?
Yeah, so it really depends on the AP score that he receives. So was he only, I'm guessing he'll be a senior next year?
Yes.
Okay, so will he only be taking an English class, or was he going to take something else in the spring?
Something else in the spring too, but now we don't know what.
Okay, so one of the things that I often suggest, because the AP scores usually aren't released until July, they're not going to let you sign up for the higher level English class until they get AP scores in. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's frustrating because, you know, picking a class time and trying to get a class that works with your schedule, or getting that online class time or whatever, things fill up quickly. But if you're waiting on AP scores, that's just one of the hassles. So sometimes I do suggest for students, like I have some students that plan to take econ in the spring and they want to do their English in the fall. Well, if they're sitting in that AP Lang class and they get a 4 or a 5, then you know, likely they can either move on to 1102, or if they get a 5 on the AP exam, then you can exempt 1102 as well. So, and you could take something else like British Lit or World Lit, or there's some other choices.
Right.
But the problem is they're not going to let you register for that until they get those scores. So sometimes I have suggested that, like, if a student was going to take econ in the spring, flip-flop it, do econ in the fall and do your English in the spring, so that you're not waiting on AP scores. Like, the AP scores can get sent, and then you still have time to get those permissions and time to register for spring semester. But it's a personal choice. I mean, you can always register for the English 1101, get your AP scores, then go back to them, have them remove the hold, and then get re-registered for the new class. But sometimes it's just complicated with the scheduling of it all.
Okay. And econ was one of the classes we were thinking about. Mm-hmm. Do you have any advice on whether to just take it at Chattahoochee, you know, on level, or is it worth it trying to take at the college?
Yeah, so I mean, I've had a lot of students do econ at Georgia State. I think, you know, that's a class that is a typical class that a student might take through dual enrollment. I haven't had a lot of students have a lot of issues with it. Now, I will say at Georgia State, any student can register for that Econ 2105, 2106, or I think it's 2100, which is the Global Perspectives one, and count for the Econ credit at the high school. But at Gwinnett Tech, a student cannot take Econ unless they have previously had Math 1111, which is college algebra. So if you're a Gwinnett Tech student wanting to take Econ, it's not that simple to just register for Econ at Gwinnett Tech because there's a prerequisite that must be met, whereas at Georgia State, there's not.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're absolutely welcome. Okay, somebody else had a question. Andrew? Velasco? I don't know if you're still there. So I feel like I'm working a radio show where I'm
Can
just
you hear
like, yes, I can hear you now. Are you there?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, what's your question?
My question was in regard.
Oh, I lost you.
In regards of different colleges. I know some of them are more. It has more requirements, like Georgia Tech, but in terms of this classes for the dual enrollment, is in the math the same that should be taken in any of them? And then the thought that we need to make is where to locate the kids, or should we think also, okay, maybe math in Georgia Tech is much better for what we need and go over there. I don't exactly understand what the difference in the same math is for the different colleges.
Okay, so I think ultimately when you decide what dual enrollment classes you want to take, you really want to make sure that the classes are going to transfer to the university you're going to end up after high school. So that's probably the first question. Like there's some very competitive schools that really would prefer to see an AP over a dual enrollment. Is that the case across the board? No, but I do think it's something that should be considered depending on your students' plans. The Math 1111 at Gwinnett Tech and the Math 1111 at Georgia State, those are both college algebra classes. Georgia State falls under the Board of Regents University System of Georgia schools, whereas Gwinnett Tech is part of the Technical College System of Georgia. Both of them are accredited differently. So a technical college like a Gwinnett Tech or a Lanier Tech or a Chattahoochee Tech, they are, they are just a different type of system, and they're really geared towards, high demand careers that you can get an associate's degree or a diploma program or certificate program and be back out into the workforce fairly quickly. Whereas a Georgia State or a Georgia Tech or a UGA or a Kennesaw or West Georgia, Valdosta, those kinds of schools are all four-year institutions and are geared towards, setting yourself up for a longer plan in terms of, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it's going to be 4 years before you earn your degree, whereas at a technical school, it might just be a 2-year program and then you can be in the workforce. So it just depends on what your plans are and what your child's plans are as to what would be the best path for your student. Georgia Tech's program is very specific. Georgia Tech doesn't allow just any student to come and take their distance learning math program. You have to have taken AP Calculus BC with us and scored fairly high on your AP exam in order to even apply to their program. So if you're in the BC Calc program and you want to apply for the distance learning math program, those are when you're going to do multivariable calc and linear algebra and things like that. Those are higher level, way higher than just doing college algebra. In a lot in a big sense of the word, if your student is set up to do the AP Calculus program or AP Statistics program with us at Chattahoochee, that is a fantastic math option in order to get a college credit and show rigor on a college application without taking college algebra, the Math 1111. The Math 1111, while it meets the requirement for the fourth math, it's not necessarily the most rigorous math that is offered. So you have to kind of keep in mind what your long-term plan is. Does that make sense? I don't know if I answered your question or not. Ms. Velasco?
Yes, you answered correctly. Thank you so much.
It really does. I mean, when it comes to planning out your courses and kind of what your thoughts are for long-term planning, you really want to look at your long-term goals and like colleges that you would like to apply to or try to get into, and how you match up against you know, other students that may be applying to that university. And that's not easy to do. And what I don't want a student to do, and I was telling a student earlier today and her parents, is that it's really not a good idea to just compare yourself to your peers at the high school, because their plans are not necessarily what your plans are going to look like. You need to be doing things what's going to be in your best interest in the long term and setting yourself up for success, and not necessarily doing this constant comparison. I'll take the next question from Adam. Adam, are you there?
Yes.
Did you have another question?
Yeah, I was doing the funding form and it's asking for current grade level. I'm 10th grade and only has 11th and 12th.
Okay, so you're going to put in 10th grade because that's your current level. And then when your counselor goes in and does your application, if you're planning to do it for summer or fall, we mark you as an 11th grader as long as you are on track to passing all your classes this year.
So I put 11th grade and I'm in 10th.
If it's asking for your current grade level, you're going to put 10.
There's only 11th and 12th.
Are you, did you put for Georgia State? What did you put for?
Georgia State.
Well, you can put 11 because I mean, honestly, we have to go in and review everything that you put in there anyway. So I don't know that it's going to make much of a difference.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are you talking about the funding form with Georgia Futures, Adam?
It's the funding form on Google, the Google Docs.
The Google form. Let me look at it. Hold on. Are you doing the Georgia State one?
Yeah, Georgia State.
Okay, let me look at it. I'll pull it up here. Sometimes if I can, you know, if I see that there's some sort of an error, I can fix it on my end without it being too big of an issue. So you're in the fall Google form for the fall GSU funding?
Yeah, fall 2021.
Uh-huh. Oh, and that's because Georgia State, okay, that's an error on my part. Thank you for pointing that out. So for Georgia State, you can only be an 11th or 12th grader. So just go ahead and put 11th and we'll know what you're talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. And then I will probably add another option in there tomorrow. Okay. Ms. Velasco, did you have another question?
No.
Okay, I saw your hand was still up.
Yeah,
I see
sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. You're fine. I see some other names that are listed. If you have questions you'd like to ask, just go ahead and raise your hand and we can get them answered. I do have a hard stop of 5 o'clock because I have to get to my son's baseball game, but I'm happy to stay on till 5 to answer any questions that you may have had through the process. I just want to make sure that we're answering as much as we can. Anybody else?
To apply for the funding in one of the three colleges, we need to first look at the requirements to see if the kid complies with them, correct?
Yeah, so let me write that down. So for each of the colleges, there are specific requirements for them. Georgia State and Georgia Tech are probably the most restrictive. Gwinnett Tech does have test score requirements, but you know, they don't ask to see a GPA or a transcript or anything like that. So it's probably the most lenient. But I think when it comes to when you're doing that Georgia Futures funding application on the Georgia Futures website, it will ask you what college you're intending to do for dual enrollment. You can list up to 10 schools, but we're only going to select the ones that you are intending to go to for your funding. So you can list Gwinnett Tech and Georgia State in your Georgia Futures application. And then, you know, later down the line, when you're actually making decisions about what classes you're taking and putting that in our funding form, I know what to fund you for at Georgia State, or what to fund you for at Georgia Tech, or what to fund, you know, because I do have some students that may do their English through Georgia State and they're going to do their math through Georgia Tech. And so they need both of those colleges listed, and so we can fund them appropriately.
I like that, and I didn't know that we could do that. Thank you.
Yeah, so it just depends on, you know, meeting those requirements. The one thing to know is that you cannot go over the 30 credit hours that are allotted to dual enrollment students. So like, you know, again, earlier today I was meeting with another student who has already banked so many hours with dual enrollment, and we're trying to map out you know, the rest of the requirements and what they're trying to take through dual enrollment. And he doesn't have enough to do a full-time load. So he's got to kind of pick and choose what classes we do. So that's where it's important. Even if you're doing multiple schools, you cannot go over the 30 credits. Okay.
So can we reach out to you later on for more clarification, or in a separate email or something?
Yeah, you would reach out to your school counselor, who's Miss Jones.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I said this earlier, but just so y'all know, I'm the dual enrollment coordinator, yay me. But thankfully I have a lot of counselors to be able to do all of the, you know, a lot of the help, the funding applications, the looking through contracts, because I don't know your graduate, you know, every student's graduation requirements and how many hours they've already banked for dual enrollment and all of those kinds of things. So that's why you really need to be asking your individual counselor. I am the coordinator for information and sharing information and pushing out processes, but in terms of like, did we get your contract? Do we know how to complete the funding form, or like, you know, all kinds of specific things regarding your child or you, that needs to go to your direct counselor. Sharmila, did you have a question?
Yeah, hi. I have a question. So is there any reason that you will be denied enrollment, like if we are doing a Georgia State application? I was just wondering, do I need to do even the Gwinnett Tech just to make sure that she gets one of them, or does it matter?
Okay, so this is a great question. You can be denied. Now, it would be based on merit, on whether or not you met their minimum requirements. It's not like you can be denied in that I'll speak to Gwinnett Tech and Georgia State specifically first. But for those colleges, they have very specific requirements, minimum requirements you have to have in order to get in. And if you do not meet those requirements, then they will deny a student. Okay. However, it's never going to be for those two schools. They don't run out of space. So I had one student that was worried that they didn't get their stuff in fast enough, and they, you know, it was like if you were last to get it done, then they would run out of spaces for dual enrollment. It doesn't work that way for Gwinnett Tech and Georgia State. As long as a student applies by their deadline and gets their stuff in and meets their minimum requirements, you're going to get accepted. Now, for Georgia Tech, they have very high expectations, and they do have a limited number of spots that they will be allotting to dual enrollment students. And so they're more likely to be denied based on merit, but also just the sheer numbers of students that are applying for their specific programs, they can and may deny. So just because they don't have the space. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does. I'm thinking if she meets the minimum requirements, there should be no issue for Georgia State, basically.
Correct.
Right?
And Georgia State, one thing to know is, you know, we submit your transcript to Georgia State for you, but they recalculate the GPA on their scale. So you do have to meet a 3.0 minimum GPA based on their requirements. So they will take out electives. They're going to take out some things and recalculate, and they tend to post, you know, what classes they're looking for and that kind of thing on their websites. But you do have to meet the 3.0 minimum, and then you have to either send in test scores or you have to have completed certain curriculum in order to move forward in their process. If you didn't meet the curriculum standard, like if you haven't completed Algebra 2, they are going to request test scores. Either the AccuPlacer, the ACT, or the SAT can be submitted.
Okay. Okay. So the scores are needed even for 11th grade. I mean, she's going to be a senior. So even for seniors, they need the scores for the test.
So you can go ahead and apply and not submit the scores, and then they won't deny you because you haven't submitted them. But if you need them, then they're going to come back and tell you.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Ms. Velasco, did you have another question?
Elizabeth, going back to what you were saying, the possibility of two schools, two colleges, do we need to fill both funding applications or for depending on the classes, or just the application for each one of them?
Okay, so let me write this out. Hold on. Okay, so basically, if you're going to apply to two different colleges, you do have to do both applications for those colleges. So say you do Georgia Tech and Georgia State, or Georgia State and Gwinnett Tech, you have to do both applications. For the funding application, for Georgia Futures funding application, you would actually within the application, you're allowed to list multiple schools. They're only going to let you submit one application. You can always edit it, but once it's submitted, you know, you want to make sure you've listed the colleges appropriately in there so that we can, on the high school side, we can pick them up on our end. You do not have to do two dual enrollment contracts. You would just do the one Fulton County dual enrollment contract, and on there you can list, you know, I'm applying to these schools. That's totally fine. I don't want 3 dual enrollment contracts because you're applying to 3 colleges. Just give me the one. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
And I would say, you know, in that the funding part, the step 3, there's 2 parts to it. There's that Georgia Futures application that you have to go in and you have to submit. The student has to submit their part, and the parent has an email that they'll get where they have to finalize the application, like giving the student permission to do dual enrollment. But then there's a part for the high school, that's the part 2 of step 3, that basically you're telling your counselor in a funding form, the Google form, for the college, what you intend to take. So if it's the distance learning math at Georgia Tech, we know there's not going to be a funding form for that because we already know what Georgia Tech kids are taking. But at Georgia State or Gwinnett Tech, it's like a drop-down menu in the form, and you're telling me, okay, we're going to take Math 1111 and we're going to take English 1101 in the fall. And I haven't released the spring form yet because let's just get through summer and fall first, and then we'll worry about spring. Okay?
Miss Chilson, I'm here.
Hi. Thank you.
Hey. I don't know if you covered this already. A student asked in the chat, what difference does it, basically what's the difference between Georgia State, Georgia Tech, and Gwinnett Tech?
I did.
Other than the physical location and the requirements?
I talked about that earlier.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
I think that was question number 11 in the PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yeah, that was more in regards to math, but you know, I did kind of talk about the difference between being a technical school and a University System of Georgia school and like that kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Then some really good questions and some more specific questions. I've been very appreciative. I see a student raising or somebody raising their hand. Pramod or?
Yes, it's Pramod. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm applying to distance math at Georgia Tech for senior year next year.
Okay.
And in the case, since like they do reject some people, so in the case that they, if I don't get in, I was planning on applying to Georgia State math, GSU math as well. Is that possible to do?
Yes.
Okay, so
yeah,
would that also be online?
Yeah, so what I would say is to make sure for Georgia State that you are starting the process now and going ahead with all of their steps, because they have told us that like once it gets to like mid-July, they're not processing any new applications. So if you don't find out that you don't get into Georgia Tech until mid or end of July, and then want to do Georgia State, it is too late to start their process. You really need to have gone ahead and submitted the application and done your funding app and gone through and go ahead and get accepted to Georgia State. That doesn't mean you have to register for a class. You can go ahead and prep yourself. And then if you get into Georgia Tech, we're all smooth sailing, things are great. But if you don't, because they are so competitive and limited on spots, you have a backup option.
Yeah, and would the Georgia GSU math also be online, like Tech Math? Or?
Yeah, you could do a class online. Now, I would say you want to go ahead and when you send your AP scores to Georgia Tech, go ahead and send your AP scores to Georgia State. And then that way, all your bases are covered when you're trying to register for a class.
Okay, all
because
right.
They're not going to let you just register for a higher level math without having some proof of an AP score or something like that.
Okay, so would that applying to like two different colleges for like the same subject, would that have any difference or effect on any of the early steps in the application? Like, do I have to fill out two funding forms or just one?
Okay, so that's what I was just saying. So Georgia Futures, you do one application on Georgia Futures, but you can list multiple institutions.
Okay, but then I would still have to do separate applications.
Yeah, so for the GSU form, there's the GSU fall funding form, like a Google form for your counselor. You need to do that for Georgia State. There isn't one for Georgia Tech because everybody going to Georgia Tech, that's a first year student, they're all taking the exact same thing. So we already know that.
Okay, all right. And in the case that if I do get into Tech and I also get into GSU, would I just reject like GSU and take Georgia Tech in the fall?
Yeah, I mean, I would think at that point you could just, I mean, honestly, if you don't do anything with your acceptance, they're not gonna care. They're just gonna move on. They have other fish to fry.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Great questions.
To tag onto that real quick, you mentioned, you know, he wouldn't be able to register for a higher level math class until his AP score comes in. And since we know that Georgia State's being kind of a little restrictive as far as, you know, new registrations. So I'm not sure how this is going to play out. You know, this is new with COVID and everything. And, you know, Georgia State sometimes will implement new things and stuff.
Yes, they will.
it might be worth it, Promote, for you to kind of
Mhm.
register for like a placeholder class, just to like show Georgia State that you like, okay, I'm already registered for a class, and then once, if for some odd reason you don't get into tech math,
Yeah.
then you can send your AP score to Georgia State, and then at that point in time in the registration process, it would be changing your registration.
Yeah, that's
without
good.
a new registration.
That's so true, because what they have said is that they're only going to allow, like after mid-July, they're only going to allow changes to registrations, not new registrations. So if you never registered for anything, they may not allow you at that point to even get registered. So that's a great point. You may want to just choose something, register for it, and then if you need to drop it before classes start, a drop is not the same as a withdrawal.
Yeah.
So what kind of, so if I don't, like in the initial stage before I get my AP exams, I would have to apply for a different subject other than math into GSU. So what subject would I apply for?
I personally would like, you know, something like an econ, or, you know,
Psychology,
a
1101.
psychology, a sociology. I mean, you could pick, but you know, just know that if you don't get in and you want to then change your registration to a different class at that point, they'll still allow changes in late July, but they won't allow, like, if you never registered to begin with by their deadlines, they're not going to allow new registrations.
Yeah.
Georgia State is very, they're very strict.
Okay. So what I would do is apply for, like, for example, psychology at GSU, and then the normal math class at Tech. And then if I don't get into Tech, I would change my registration from psychology to the math class. Okay.
You got it. You got
All right,
it.
that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that was a great question. Hopefully people will go back and review this recording and look at item number 16.
I hope so. Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions? These are really good questions.
So all this is to be filled out before March the 31st, correct? And
yeah. And the reason why is because Fulton County has a deadline of March 31st to get your contract in and your application done. All the other steps can technically be done after that, but the longer you wait, Georgia State may have their own deadlines where they shut it down, or Gwinnett Tech says, oh, we're going to apply late fees because you missed our deadlines. So I think it's personally best to have the whole process wrapped up in a bow by March 31st. So like, you've done your application, you did your funding, you turned in your contract, you submitted your transcripts, you like did all of the stuff you can by the 31st. Now, the caveat to that is that Georgia Tech's process doesn't even open until May 15th. So if you're applying to Georgia Tech, not Gwinnett Tech, but Georgia Tech, you know, they have a very specific 1 month where they allow applications. They allow applications from May 15th to June 15th, and then it's shut down after that. And every year I have a student that tells me they missed the deadline and oops, can I still apply? And it is a no. That's not something that we're able to do at that point.
The location to take the classes at Georgia Tech, it's in downtown?
The distance math classes, the first year classes are with us here on our campus, and they're done through distance learning, and they've been done that way for years. I mean, even pre-COVID, all of the first year math classes, the multivariable calc and the linear algebra are done. They're done here on our campus through a video conferencing kind of setup with the professor. Students do have the option to apply for the full-time program, but that program you have to go to the campus and take the classes. They really prefer that they're done in person.
Thank you.
A student just asked in the chat box, well, it's a kind of two-parter. Do you have to send in the graduation status report as well? And I said, no, of course, grad status report is just for you to reference as you fill out the remaining grad requirements portion of the DE contract. And then kind of how to fill out that portion. So I shared with the student. It all depends on the classes you've already taken / currently taking versus classes you have left to take. So that would be downloading your transcript from Infinite Campus. You can click on the Documents tab to get that. And then you can use the grad status report. You can print it electronically, fill it out however you want for your own records, and then check off the completed classes and the classes you're currently taking. And then the ones that are left over that are not checked off, those are your remaining ones.
And for our juniors, you know, we all had junior meetings and we went through what graduation requirements were left. You can also look in the academic planner and it will basically tell you in Infinite Campus in the academic planner section. That's a new tab in Infinite Campus for students and parents to review, but it should show what classes you're scheduled for the upcoming year. Now, 10th graders or rising 11th graders or whatever, may need to take a look at that transcript and then do a cross-referencing between the two, you know, the documents to see what's left. Any other, I'll take one more question and then it's almost 5 o'clock. And as I said earlier, that's when I've got to go. So we'll certainly have another one of these at the end of March. I think it's March 30th, which is a day before the deadline. And hopefully can answer any last minute questions there. But yeah, I mean, anything y'all have left to ask, raise your hand and let us know. Do you see any others in the chat? I'm not monitoring the chat.
I mean, I've got all the chat ones covered. Andrew Velasco still has a hand raised, but that was, I think they had asked the previous question. So yeah. If you have another question,
did you have any other questions, Ms. Velasco?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Did anybody have any last questions to ask? Now is a great time.
Oh, hang on. There's one. Let's see. Student says he said a screenshot of his academic planner says that my electives are more than covered, but I'm wondering if I will have any other electives to cover. No, if your academic planner says that your electives category is satisfied, you do not have any more electives to cover. Now, it's very possible, plenty of students just from, you know, taking high school classes in middle school, taking summer classes, whatever, plenty of students will have more classes listed in their academic planner than are actually required to graduate. But of course, I don't know if you shared this earlier in the Q&A session, Ms. Chelson, but every student's expected to have a full schedule to be a full-time student. Yeah, so it's very possible that you don't have any left that are required, but you're probably going to be choosing some to take anyway.
Yeah, I would say the majority of students have well over the credits they need in order to graduate by the time graduation rolls around. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank all of you for joining us, all of you for asking questions. I will post this recording tomorrow on the Weebly site. And of course, if you have more questions, please come to the next one on March 30th from 4 to 5, or you can email your counselor if you have specific questions in regards to your application or things that you just have, you know, you're just worrying about. So we're happy to help as we can. Ms. Blunt, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Not right now, no.
Okay, thank you. Goodbye, guys.
Thanks for coming.